Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's your boy D Black coming back with another SmackDown review. And remember, always raw and uncut. Alright, SmackDown tonight. It sucked. That's all I can say. This show gave nothing. Nothing. I mean, you get Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton doing the same thing that they've done. They've had their match, in WrestleMania and stuff, and Cody wins that match. And then I believe they had another match, and then that's when Randy Orton got injured and stuff, and then Randy Orton comes back, he attacks Cody Rhodes and stuff like that, and now here we are, and it's just crazy. And then it starts off with Sami Zayn, coming out, and he's complaining to Nick Aldis and stuff like that. The same old Sammy that we've had and everything. And then we get a debut match with Blake Monroe going against Giulia. But hell, that match never even got to the start and everything. And I mean, it was just crazy, man. I mean, SmackDown tonight was just insane, made zero sense and stuff, and it sucked from beginning to the end. All right, well, let's get going. Let's start it out. And it starts, we have Sami Zayn coming out, with Nick Aldis, and he's complaining again, saying that, it's an injustice and everything, why he's not, defending the title, and everything. I mean, he lost. So, I mean, he lost the title. I mean, I'm sorry that, he wasn't ready for CM Punk, when he fought CM Punk, and CM Punk beat him for his title and stuff like that and everything. I mean, you got to be ready. If you're a champion, you got to stay ready and stuff, And Sami Zayn all the time complaining about this and how he got screwed off about this and how he got screwed off with that and everything. And yes, I'm sure last week he got screwed again and everything because he was supposed to have the match, with Cody Rhodes, and then Randy Orton came out and he attacked Cody and stuff. So that match never even got started with him and Sammy and stuff because Sammy was to win that match. He would have had a chance, getting involved with, a title shot and stuff like that. But that never happened and stuff. And then as Sammy is talking to all this, Randy comes out and everything because Sammy's talking crap, about Randy about getting his shot and everything and stuff and everything. And then while that's going on, and Cody's already out in the ring and he's calling Randy out and stuff. So Randy goes out, to the ring, and then him and Cody, they're having their words and stuff like that, going back and forth and stuff. And then Nick Aldis tells him, look, hey, we're enough of this and stuff. He said, if they put hands, he said he made a stipulation. Nick Aldis made the stipulation and said if they put hands on each other before Sunday night main event, that they won't even get the match. Whoever the winner is, whatever, between the both of them, they won't get a match for the undisputed title. So they have to leave each other alone. They can't put hands on each other, for the next few weeks until after that match is concerned. And whoever wins gets a title shot. And I'm sure Sami Zayn is looking at it like it's crazy and stuff. And then as Cody and Randy, go at it and everything, as the stipulation was already put down for Sunday night main event that they can't touch each other and stuff like that. And then Randy goes on to say that, because he's the person, he's very professional, that he won't take the chance of doing anything about putting hands on Cody or anything like that because I want to ruin the shot, at getting a title shot and everything. And then, he goes on and tell Cody, that Cody had a chance, to take him out with the chair last week and everything. Cody didn't do it. He said Cody was a nice, he said if it was him, he'd have done it because he's done it before. And he said when he did it, he didn't care, he had no remorse from it. And he said that he would do it again and stuff like that. Then he said the reason that Cody didn't do it because Cody was a nice guy and everything was too good and everything. And he didn't have that instinct in him and stuff. Um, and everything. And they said instead of he's, they people call him the American Nightmare, and then he calls him the American Daydream and everything and stuff. And then Cody goes on and everything. He's talking about, hey, you talking about, him being the legend killer and stuff like that. Cody said, hey, he could go on, Randy could go on and, and win number 15, 16, 17 or beyond that and everything. But he said that it all comes around and, in a circle that he would have to come back and face him again and stuff. And then Cody says, he's that guy and stuff, and he said it'll come back to him, and he's the one who's gonna kill the legend killer, the QB1. And then he goes on and say that's not a doggone prediction, it's a spoiler and stuff. And then they look at each other crazy and stuff. For a minute there I thought they were gonna get into it, but the stipulation is the fact that they can't put their hands on each other, and and so on. And then after that, then we have Tama Tonga and Talla Tonga. They're talking about, and there was Haku and stuff, and they're saying that they're the champions now and everything, and if anybody wants to step up, to try to take their titles away from them, they would pay the price, and then they go ahead and they issue a challenge to R-Truth and Damian Priest, for a rematch. If they want the titles back, come and get the titles and stuff. And then we get the match with Damian Priest and R-Truth, with Talla Tonga and Tama Tonga for the tag team titles and everything. And this match was going, and everything like that. You had the War Raiders back there, watching the match and everything. And you know, and stuff. And then all of a sudden, R-Truth gets hit with the Red Cross high, low, wins the match and everything. At least that's what they call it. It was Talla Tonga hitting R-Truth with a boot, and then Tama Tonga coming low on him and stuff like that. But after the match, you know, it looked like to me that Damian Priest was about to turn on R-Truth, but they embraced, they hugged and stuff, and they left, you know, um, as friends still. Then we get CM Punk, and Kathy, and Kathy Kelly's at telling CM Punk, that the crowd is not on his side and everything and stuff that there was in KO's hometown. And, CM Punk was like, hey, that doesn't even matter to him, because the outcome is going to be is that he's still going to walk out as champion, and then Randy Orton comes out and he tells CM Punk after he handles Cody and beats Cody, at Sunday Night Main Event, that he's coming after CM Punk, for number 15. And CM Punk tells him, he's ready, bring it on. And then we get Chelsea Green and Tiffany Stratton, they're talking about, and Chelsea saying that, asking Tiffany she was okay, and then Tiffany's telling her, hey, that she doesn't need her to come out, to help her or anything like that with the match that she has later with Lash Legend and stuff. And then, Paige, she comes out and stuff, and they're talking. She kind of Paige puts down, the Bellas and everything, saying that Brie is hurt and that, Nikki turned on her and everything like that, but she's going to take care of that situation, later on and stuff. And then, then out comes Fatal Influence, and then they're starting to talk their little crap and everything, you know, and stuff. And then Tiffany, tells Fallon that she's coming after her title and stuff. And then Fallon tells Tiffany, hey, stop wrapping if you keep wrapping tape around, your waist, that they're gonna keep wrapping belts around their waist and stuff, so I guess they were telling Tiffany about, the injury that she got and stuff like that and everything. So eventually, sometime down the line, we're gonna probably see Tiffany Stratton and JC Jane, going at it again for, the U.S. title belt. But Tiffany said that she's gonna that she would take the title, and her and Tiffany would have all the titles. But then again, they're tag team champions too. So after that craziness, you know, um, then you get Kathy Kelly talking to Blake Monroe, saying that it's her first match, tonight on SmackDown, and she's making her, debut after attacking everybody in the back and stuff like that. So she has a match, tonight with Giulia. And then Giulia, the music starts, and Giulia comes out, and all of a sudden Blake Monroe comes out, and she attacks Giulia, and the match never gets started because Blake Monroe beats the crap out of Giulia. I mean, she beat her from pillow to post, and the match never gets started. You know, so we don't know what that outcome would be, and make it make sense because it doesn't make any sense why Blake Monroe would do that. It's not a debut. She didn't win and stuff. The match never got started, so it was a no contest. Then you got Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. They're talking, again with this friendship thing, and then about Tatum Paxley and stuff and what she did, to help them out and stuff like that. But I don't think Charlotte is feeling Tatum Paxley. So there's probably going to be some problems down the road with that, with them and stuff. I mean, Alexa Bliss did say that Tatum Paxley does have some features, that she has, and then she reminds her of herself. And so I think Charlotte didn't really like that. And then out comes Jade Cargill with B-Fab and Meechin and everything. And then Meechin makes a challenge to Tatum Paxley next week on SmackDown and stuff. So we'll see what happens with that. Then we got Trick Williams and Lil Yachty, and stuff. Trick Williams gets in the ring and he says that he got Lil Yachty back and everything, but he doesn't have his title. And then he calls out Baron Corbin. And then Baron Corbin comes out on his bike, which is a nice bike. I kind of like that bike, but he doesn't have the title with him and stuff like that, you know. And and so now they're getting their words together and stuff like that, saying this, and then Baron Corbin says that the title, that the belt is getting an upgrade, and he tells Tricks, he want he won't get a rematch, because Trick, wants a rematch with him. And then basically Baron Corbin says that the only way that Trick Williams can get a rematch and everything if Little Yachty can beat him. He says he's going to give Little Yachty 5 minutes and everything. And if Little Yachty beats him, then Trick Williams will get, a title shot, which is crazy and stuff like that and everything. And then as they're talking and everything, Little Yachty, he comes and he attacks Baron Corbin with the trick stick and everything. And I mean, he hit him a couple of times with it and everything. And then he tells Trick that, hey, if he can do that, he's told Yachty that it's going to be the longest 5 minutes of his life because after he gets finished with him, he's going to put him down. And then if Yachty wins, then Trick Williams gets that match with him on Sunday night main event and stuff. So all that's doing is just telling you that something's going to happen. Yachty's probably going to win the match. I don't see how that's going to be possible, because it would be crazy if that happens. That Yachty beats the U.S. title holder, Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin being the type of wrestler that he is, make that make sense. But anyway, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment. Let me know how you're feeling. If you agree or disagree with me, leave me a comment and let me know. Then we got KO and Kathy Kelly, talking again. She's asking him how he feels about, having a match, in his hometown. And everything. And then Finn Balor comes out and everything. Finn Balor congratulates him and everything, and he tells him, to go out and do his thing and win the title and everything, because Finn Balor says if he wins, then he wants another shot, at getting the title, because KB did come out. I mean, KO did come out, in the match that he was supposed to have alone with Sami Zayn, but then Gunther and KO came out, and then KO wins the match. So Finn Balor, feels that there was, I guess for him, he says a little injustice and everything. And then he tells KO, if he wins, tonight, then he'll be coming, after him. And then Gunther comes out and he says that he don't have to worry about Finn Balor, because Finn Balor, is a shadow of himself. Then he tells KO, if he wins tonight, the only thing he needs to worry about is him. And then Finn Balor, tells KO, to go out there and win. And after he does, then he's coming after him and stuff like that. So, yeah. And this is where we are with SmackDown. And then we get the match with Tiffany Stratton and Lash Legend and everything. The match is okay and stuff, Lash ends the match with the last extension, and she wins and everything. And then after the match is over with, Nia Jax comes in, and Nia Jax, she attacks Tiffany. She gives a couple of leg drops and stuff like that. And then Chelsea, she comes running out with a kendo stick, and she gets into the ring, and she takes out both Nia and Lash Legend, with the kendo stick, because they leave the ring. And then Tiffany and Chelsea are in the ring consulting each other. And then we get a film promo with Shinsuke Nakamura introducing, I guess, a partner. I guess I'm pronouncing this Karaoke and stuff. And they're saying that they're going to be the ones taking over the SmackDown Tag Team division, and that Toma Tonga and Talla Tonga, they're telling them to look out because they're coming and they're going to take their titles away from them. And then we get the main event for the Undisputed World title, Kevin Owens and CM Punk. In this match, I mean, it was pretty okay. It was okay for what it was worth and stuff like that and everything. The match is going on pretty good until the referee gets nailed twice and stuff. Once with I believe KO coming into the turnbuckle and he hits the referee, and then another one the referee gets hit by CM Punk and he goes down, and then KO, he hits his finishing move on CM Punk, and there's no count. The crowd counts all the way up to about 11 or 12 or whatever the case may be and stuff. And then CM Punk, hits KO, with the GTS, and then there's no count from the referee and stuff like that. And then Sami Zayn, he comes running out and everything, and he hits CM Punk, he pushes, he grabs CM Punk and he throws him into the ring post and stuff like that. And then Sammy, gets the ref and he throws him into the ring, and he tries to give KO the belt, to hit CM Punk with. and then KO, he refuses to hit, CM Punk with the belt and everything. Then he pushes Sammy and he shoves the belt into into Sammy's face. And then all of a sudden, Sammy he nails KO with the belt and everything. And then CM Punk gets him and the GTS's him, and he gets the win. And then Sammy gets the title and everything. And he hits KO again, and then he hits CM Punk with the belt again and stuff. Then he looks over at Sammy. Then he looks over at KO and CM Punk. Then Sami Zayn holds up the belt, over his head and everything. and he's put both, CM Punk and KO out with the belt and everything. But ultimately, CM Punk, wins the title. I mean, retains the title, with the GTS on KO due to the interference of Sami Zayn and stuff. So this was SmackDown, and I'm telling you, man, there was no excitement in this at all. But we'll see what happens next week. And with that, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment, let me know how you feel and everything. Thank you for watching. God bless, deuces, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.